Maybe I'm the wrong person to make judgments like this, but there are times I have to. Don't really have a choice. Ungawa Johnson wants to start a movement. And the issue with Ungawa Johnson trying to start a movement is that Ungawa Johnson um, is ignoring the fact that it's already been here, and he's ignored it. Then, on top of ignoring it, he's turned around and belittled it. So he's done all of this. He's done it multiple times. He kept doing it. Well, he kept doing it. And then when his grown daughter, Anissa, decided to jump on him and say that he was a deadbeat, even though he paid child support and even though she didn't want to be around him when she was younger. And it's the Black Manosphere that has come to his defense. He now sits up and wants to start something. Listen, Omar, I'm sorry, Ungawa, because you don't do nothing Arab, right? Right. Okay. Even if it's not something that belongs to the Arabs. Let me explain this right quick. The movement's already there. It's been around since longer than I've known about it. It's the Black Manosphere. You need to get your butt on board with this. You don't need to sit up here and say, let's start a movement. Where my alpha males at? They're over here, bro. That's where they are. See, the white manosphere, or the manosphere in general, you can say what you want about. The Black Manosphere is something else. I've been looking for this since not long after I became Muslim, since not long after I got married. I've been looking for this, didn't know it was there. But when I saw it, I said, okay, you know what? It sounds kind of like what I've been looking for, except that they go hard in the paint on Black women. But let me see, because I know how we are trained and taught, and I know how hard it is to go hard in the paint on Black women and categorically. Let me see why they're doing this. So from 2017, summer of 2017, when my memory was jarred, until I became active on YouTube about this content in 2019. Which will be 6 years and about another month. I really remember. I can remember getting on different channels and listening and hearing about how this one don't like that one, and hearing some crazy stuff coming out of different people's mouths. But the thing that stood out to me was that Black men were not making up a dot-gam mother cuss word thing that they were saying about Black women. And they weren't even preaching hatred. They were preaching accountability and disaffection. No more loyalty, no more chasing after them. They were not preaching doing anything wrong or harming Black women. They were just preaching no more staying by them, no more chasing them. The fact remains that you got all these other races out there, and sisters pretty much want you to storm the castles of white supremacy and get yourselves killed in the process. Angry Man was the one that I first heard use that analogy. Angry Man. Another apostate from Islam, by the way, by his own admission. I give credit where it's due. I listened to Unawa Johnson, and I thought, Omar's on to something. We can't be around these other folks like that. We certainly can't be trying to mix with them when they're the ones that got issues with mixing with us. I was the one that said that, same as he did. And I said it for the same reasons. It's not because we don't like them. It's because they can't see us as equal. But then 2017, I got my memory jarred and I began to realize, wait a minute. According to what this sister at my job told me back in 2001, that summer, it's nothing but a nuisance and a bother to Black women if I go and I make approaches to them. They don't like that. I'm not the one they want making approaches. Even if they like me, I'm not the one they want making approaches unless they're hood and ghetto or their country or both put together. Contrario, they got to be really low class to want to give me a shot. That's going to come with the fat and other men's kids, and probably an STD, debt, poverty, and stanky breath while we at it. Just clearly we don't match. That's what that's going to be every time. And I started thinking, well, there are women that are like me. They look similar, and they come from educated families too. So we got multiple things about us that make us similar, but they're the least interested. What's going on here? Well, when I was told in 2001 what it was, in my pro-blackness, I said, you know what? That's actually a good reason for sisters to not want me and to not treat me the same as other brothers. The only thing they did wrong is they didn't make that very clear. I didn't do anything to them. I'm not the colonizer. I don't even look like one. But they should have just made that clear, because then I could have said, okay, well, it's not my fault, but that also means I can't be with sisters. I could have made decisions, planned my life around this much better from early on. I could have said, okay, well, you know what? If having kids with these other women is wrong, I just won't have kids with them. Just date them or marry them, but won't have kids with them. Maybe I'll marry one that's too old to have them. But why the hell would they want, why would I go keep trying to approach sisters if me doing that is nothing but a nuisance? Ungawa Johnson would not have agreed. He would have agreed with sisters' right to turn me away again and again and again and again and again because of my ambiguity and appearance, but he would not have agreed with my decision to turn around and say, I'm not going to bother them no more. I'm going to get over here with somebody else. Someone whose people are not enemies to our people, but somebody else. I'm not getting with the enemy. I'm not bunny hopping. They're a problem. But I can go, there are other races out there. He would have been like, nope, it needs to be an African queen. Brother, if you really about your people, hold up. If I'm really about my people and the women don't want me, I will leave them be. But are you going to trust me around our people, especially the young? Come on, a man is always perpetually single, is not trusted in many situations. And eventually, false accusations are leveled against such men when someone gets angry with them. They're going to have enemies like anybody else. So imagine me, always single, never with nobody, but I have as many enemies as anybody else. And one day a sister just gets mad. One day, a low-class sister that does tend to chase me down, wants me trying to get at her, but she got other men's kids and that ain't my job. And I say, that's okay, I'm a pass. So she tells her kids to say something that's not true, that I never did it. How am I going to prove that? I already look strange. Then I'm always by myself. I had to sit down and think about all this stuff. And now, after years of this, I finally found a Black Manosphere and I studied it for 2 years before I really got active in it. Really did. And shouts out to Don Calypso and BGS and the Roger Report and Mike Elam. And I Am Classic. And plenty of others. Abdullah Atayib, Dwight Hayes, who got busy sharing my stuff. Shout out to them too. I can't remember how I got into the Telegram group. Brother Anderson started putting my stuff out. Shout out to them. You all really backed me up when Aisha Curry disrespected her husband like that in front of his mom. And I said something, that one got 18,000 views. Y'all backed me up. I appreciate that. I mean that from the bottom of my black heart. To this day, that's my second most viewed video. I've had some others, but that's my second most viewed video. I'm saying all this to say that now I want to say something about these Johnny come latelys. There's one thing when somebody's been lied to about us. And then they find out they were lied to, and then they say, wait, this is not so bad, and they come join us. But as I've stated, the red pill awareness and the Black Manosphere are not a religion. So therefore, if you mess around and you come to us after you've been bashing and trashing us, and we've explained ourselves to you. Screw you. We don't need you. Anton, I'm talking to you. You sitting up saying, okay, but see, now Omar wants to be red pill. Nigga, look at you. I hate talking like this during Ramadan. But you were sitting up acting like, well, because I got money, I'm smarter than these dudes, and these guys are just mad because of the women they didn't get. No, we told you we're upset because of the lies about it and because of the blame that they've been putting on guys. And you said, well, I'm valid because I'm married. Okay, so a black woman chose you. Great. And I want your family to stay together. Don't get it twisted. But Anton, you know, for a while, bro, you were busting up and bashing the Black Manosphere. Now you want to sit up and say Omar Ungawa Johnson is a Johnny come lately. Both of you were. You both had opportunities to find out that we were not what people say about us. You both did. And you both trashed and bashed us for a while after we told you what it wasn't. You and Omar are the same. I don't say this because I hate you. I don't say this because I hate Ungawa Johnson, even though I'm supposed to, just on the basis of his apostasy from our religion alone, I'm supposed to. But maybe I'm too lazy to hate. Maybe I'm too tired and hungry because it's Ramadan. I don't know. However, you're both Johnnies come lately. You're both a day late and a dollar short with this. You beat him to the punch, and I give you credit for that. And I want you to get credit for that from other people, but let's call it what it is. And I would say something about your resemblance to Rick Ross, but if I was a little dark and my beard was a little bigger, I'd be in the same boat. So I'm going to leave that alone this time. But you came late. And you belittled and diminutized a bunch of brothers because of things that weren't really their fault, for which a lot of sisters didn't want them. And you acting like that means that they ain't valid. Okay, you ain't got as much money as me, and you ain't married, and women ain't picking you. No. This is a space full of men that have had all kinds of experiences. I've been select and unselect. Now, I don't like the conditions under which I was select, but I've been both. In one of the most conservative countries in the world, I've had lady staff working with me or near me, trying to get at me. Being polite, being nice about it. And I'm not going to sit up and say they were rude, but the expectation was still a bit of a rudeness. I'm like, look, I don't do this. Yeah, I'm being nice. One is a black woman, of course, and she's Fulani. Of course, we're going to chop it up about our history and all that, but that's in front of other people. That's when they're there. Because I don't have any inappropriate intentions and thought she didn't either. I don't mind speaking to ladies and being nice. That's cool. But I'm a married man and I honor those vows. Can't afford to marry another one? Don't think I'd want to. I don't think I can treat somebody equal to my first wife. And I straight told her, if you keep on saying to me, don't marry someone else, then I'm going to have to do it because I'm not supposed to just be obedient. I'm supposed to be a leader, be concerned with your rights. And that one of them is the right to be treated equal. But you know what? Don't say nothing about it. But you're going to force my hand to actually do that. But in reality, I don't see myself treating somebody else like I can treat her because I can treat her better. But understand this. I'm in one of the most conservative parts of the world, Anton. Some of the loosest 403s and thoughts in the States wanted me to make efforts to get with them so they could play hard to get. And they told some people that. I would pretend like I didn't even know there were 403s and thoughts, and I would just be nice and polite and passing at work or school or something, and they'd be like, "Stop trying to get it." And I'm like, they just obsessed with telling somebody no, and it had to be me. And then I come over here, and MILFs and fine young things are looking at me and kind of eyeballing me up and down. My wife bought some pants for me that were a little bit thinner in the fit, a bit. They weren't as loose as when I'm used to wearing as somebody that grew up in the 80s and 90s. She bought some pants for me like that, work pants. And when I was teaching both genders in Riyadh, I had to stop wearing those pants to work. I stood up. I was sitting down talking. I stood up to write something on the board behind me. The guys were looking at me. Their gazes went up with my head as I stood up. Several of the ladies, the ones that were not looking at their phones at the time, kept looking straight across as I stood up. No, shuck that fit. And I realized what it was. And that was the last day I wore pants like that to work unless I didn't tuck my shirt in. And I'd wear a bigger shirt, and that looked awkward, so I stopped doing that. That's what I had to do. Over here, they didn't disrespect me. They weren't like, hey, listen, you know what that ding-a-ling do? They didn't try to catch me in private or nothing like that. They got distracted. There's a few of them. So I can't sit up and say that I can't say that what they did was downright evil and bad in intention. They were just distracted. Marriage ain't easy for people here. They ain't had none, and there was at eye level with them. But I come here and they're conservative, and I got more options amongst the conservative ones here than I would have had amongst the ones in the States where they're loose, even if I hit the weights. Can't get cooperation when I hit the weights, when I make money. None of that works over there in the States. I know I'm one of those folks that's had to see that. Austin Holloman went through the self-improvement, and he's tall, and he was making money, but couldn't get cooperation. And now here you come, Anton, and want to say that Ungawa Johnson joined too late. Bruh, y'all did. Now here's my issue with Ungawa. He wants to reinvent the wheel. Let's start a movement, brothers. What my alpha males at? Ninja, we've been here. And ain't nothing to start. It's already been started. You said that we were a bunch of YouTubians that were bitter about what we couldn't get when we were younger, just like Anton did on Godwith. And now you want to start a movement that's already there. No. The right thing for both of you to say is you were right and I was wrong. And because we can see that you're right, we can now put our weight or support or whatever talents we have behind you. The right thing to say, Ungawa Johnson, is when this school is finished, apparently it's about to be, and I believe when you said that. At least I believe that's what you've been told. I don't think you were lying when you said it. May not be accurate. I don't know, but I don't think you were lying. But the right thing for you to do would be to say, you know what? This is what's happening. We're going to give these boys that red pill information about the games that these women going to play. I can't tell these boys, you have to keep it black. You must stay black. You must only be with black women until black women stop playing these mother cuss word games. And as a matter of fact, you know what? I'm going to tell these boys, listen, you can give black women a few years to come and approach you, and then after they don't, then you go abroad when you got your stuff together and you can approach somebody from a race that does not hate us. That would be the right thing to say. And Anton, if you think he's been grifting all this time, I got an idea. You're a millionaire. How about you start a tutoring center first for black boys, then a school for black boys, then you get in that red pill information. Especially for the summer. How about you have a summer school for them? You know, it's too cold and destroy it in the winter. We can't do that. But how about you have a summer school for them? From June to August. Come on up. A red pill camp. How about that, bro? I guess we already know why neither one of these is feasible, but at least admit that that's the right thing to do, even if you can't make it work as a business. Then go ahead and tell that truth. Because ain't no mama gonna send their boys to find out what games mama knows and doesn't want to tell the son about, so that not only can she play them on the men in her life, but the women she ain't never met yet can turn around and play them on her son, because that's what this thing demands. That's how you sacrifice your children, namely your sons. You keep them in the dark about what these women actually want and will do if you let them get away with it. You keep them in the dark and you keep the system as it is to let them get away with it so that your son now is cannon fodder for the same purpose. Just so that some women you never met can be loose 304s with somebody else's sons. And then turn around and use your son as a backup plan because he had the nerve to not grow taller and get some tats and golds and some felonies. He had the nerve to not be a stereotype. So since he wasn't, he just has to be a 403's retirement plan. Both of y'all need to admit that's what the program is. And you know what? It sounds like you came around eventually and he did too. But how you going to call somebody else a Johnny come lately? Of course he's going to be red pill now. He'd be stupid not to. He's late. But he has some level of intelligence. He's not completely stupid. At this point, it literally smacked him in his face. She set up and said, Anissa, his daughter, set up and said, I didn't want to be around him because he's strict. I want to be with my mama, who's more permissive, but he's a deadbeat that was never there. Well, you didn't want him. But he still had to pay child support, so he did what he was supposed to do. Yeah, you were a kid, but your mama would have backed you up. That's what that came down to, Anissa. Now he's asking to meet with you and your mom, and he's also saying to the other mom, you know what, go ahead and let me see my baby. You know what that's about? I do. He's saying this because look at you now, jumping on him, not asking mom no questions, not double checking, not even asking his side of the story. Not doing that, but you want to reach out to the sister. Why? So you can indoctrinate her? And he's like, oh, hold the phone. Now, you didn't want to be around me because I was strict. And your mom was willing to back that up. So here's the deal. Before you get in touch with your sister, my other daughter, let me make sure that this is not that indoctrination. And you know what? Since that's what's going on, hey, mom, I need to see my baby. Mama Smurf number 2, I need to see her. Let her go with me to all these different places. Because this is a mission that he's on. If it was a grift, and that's all it was to him, I don't think he'd be trying to take her with him. But now he's like, you know what, no, let me take her with me. I suspect that he's been trying to actually be conscious and make money so he could pay these child support. So he's like, I believe it, but I'm going to use it as a grift if that's what I got to do to make these child support payments. Now, that kind of pressure, that was up to your mom and your sister's mom. That's what that's about. But you and this, you like, you know, the worst he called you was a struggle streamer. The worst, and that was retaliatory. But you know, man, we don't need any more reinventing of the wheel. When it comes to Islam, you could be an enemy of Islam. You could be an enemy of the Muslims. You could be an enemy of God. Later, you say, you know what, I'm going to go ahead. They're right and I was wrong, and I'm going to go ahead and join them. And we'll take you. Because you start off on a clean slate. God told us that. I still keep an eye on such folks, but most of the time they turn out to actually mean it. That's why I don't react the same way that's why I don't react the same way to Ray Lil Black as I did to Brittany Renner. Brittany Renner went straight through all these faces we saw to the final form, which is I can't even get guys to come over and smash, to let me put on this hijab and find myself, and spiritually speaking. And if she doesn't take it as a joke, she's welcome. But I'm still going to notice what it is, because there's a valid point. That's a valid principle in our religion. They were the ones who became Muslim in Mecca and then migrated to Medina, and then the ones who became Muslim in Medina. And they had different names. The ones that moved were called the Muhajirun, the ones who migrated. The ones who accepted Islam in Medina never had to leave their homes, but they helped the ones who did. They were called the Ansar, the helpers. And fact is that based on the conditions under which someone accepted, they were ranked. Individually, their rights were the same, but also there were times when they were ranked. They were told this group is in fact better than that group because of the sacrifice they made. Abu Sufyan that staunch enemy of the Muslims. He accepted after Mecca was conquered. After it was conquered, he just simply was not. So was Hind, his wife. They simply were not on the level of the Muhajirun or the Ansar. They just weren't. It doesn't mean that they were kicked out and disregarded altogether, but they just weren't. This Black Manosphere is not a religion. I find that it has an importance to how people can practice their religions. But it's not a religion. A red pill awareness is an awareness of certain things. It is not a religion. You mess around here and start bashing and trashing us from jump. Find out that that's not true. Still bash and trash us. Then later on you want to join. I'm going to be like, no, you are the Johnny come lately. Step off. Soon as I found out what this was, I studied before I made a judgment. Then I made a judgment based on what I could see. We're not the same. I didn't sit up and bash and trash the Black Manosphere. I was concerned at first, but I said, let me see what the justification is, because I know black men don't just walk around just throwing fits at black women for nothing. We hear about that, but we all hear about these black boogeymen that just hate black women. We can't find them. Where they at? Never met them. I know dudes that like white chicks, but they wouldn't sit around and talk about black bees this and black bees that. Only time I heard in person a man talk about, I can't stand a black bitch. Pardon my French. I'm quoting somebody else. The only time I heard that was a guy from Houston whose he said his mom was Creole. He was raised in Houston by his mom. He was actually 9AY. That's the truth of the matter. But his mom was colorist. And he didn't look the stereotypical Creole part either. Now, I know that Creoles don't actually look that way most of the time, but he didn't look like what people think of. So that means his mom really wasn't that pale. More than likely, if she was, she must have laid down with a man that was abundantly melanated, but she didn't like dark-skinned women, didn't want him to be with one. Turns out she didn't have to worry about that. This dude he actually was into dudes. And it was plain as day. If he wasn't, he was an effeminate metrosexual. That's the only time I heard this live. Couldn't find these boogeymen in real life. They just can't stand black women. I've met colorist men. They learned it from their moms. And the funny thing is, they actually didn't have this themselves. My childhood enemy, boy, he said the finest woman he ever dated was the darkest. Same last name as him. Chick he dated for a long time. She had long hair, but she was a medium brown shade, dark compared to him. That's who she dated. I mean, and that's who he dated. And he got married to a light bright. That's cool. But that's who he was dating at that particular age. Another guy I met, one that was a friend of mine. I know he learned it from his mom, and his mom didn't hate dark-skinned women. His mom simply said to him, they're not going to trust you. And he later on said, I don't really get into them when they're that dark. But I knew he didn't have a problem with that because his first girlfriend was very abundantly melanated. But he did tell me later on, her mother does not trust me because of my complexion. So really, his mom didn't have a hatred. His mom simply said, they're not going to trust you. You light skinned and you got freckles and red hair and I got green eyes. They're not going to trust us. It took me a while to put this all together. And so what it came down to was he didn't expect to be trusted, and he wasn't. And he found this out. I just don't know why he didn't explain to me, hey, yo, black, they don't trust you. That's what it is. You're not ugly to them. They don't trust you. They don't trust me. And I got 4C hair. How they going to trust you and your hair? They can't see your naps. I mean, I have them, but they're not visible. You you used to have to run a comb through them back when I had hair. He didn't even tell me that. That's why I didn't pick up on it at first. That's about how bad it got. So I knew you didn't have dudes walking around here just, I can't stand black women because they black. I know that wasn't the case. At least maybe in the hood, but where I lived, who I was around, educated brothers, no. No. So when I found out there was a Black Manosphere and there were dudes that they weren't going to give black women no kind of chance, none at all. I was like, so are they provoked or do they just are they just brainwashed? Which one is it? And what I found was that across the board, they were provoked. It wasn't brainwashing. They started off with, no, black women are my choice. Austin Holloman. That man said, there's no way I was going to be marrying Kate. Wasn't going to happen. And it's not her fault. My type is a black woman. Where did he settle? Nairobi, of all places. He settled in one of the cities where you got a manosphere. Imagine that. Because they black women. Brothers are stuck on sisters. I was one of them. But what I realized is that I'm capable of being re-imprinted. I found that out. I found that out being married to my second wife. Black woman, but ambiguous, looking like me. God bless that black woman. She spoiled the stew out of me. But I realized at that point I could be. I couldn't imprint on a white woman because I expect them to have issues with us. I expect that. Eventually I thought my second wife had issues with black folk, but it turns out that she took my correction when I corrected some brainwashing. I found out later what she asked for the divorce for another reason. Had nothing to do with this, but I didn't find that out till 18 months later. Nonetheless, what I'm getting at is that black men don't just walk around we can't stand black women. We just mad at black women and we objectified them, but they wouldn't let us. And then they let somebody else objectify them. And that is reason enough, by the way. But that's not what brothers are on. Brothers are on why they lying about what they like. Why are they lying to us about the kind of guys they like? Why is it that they're sitting up and saying that the nice guys aren't really nice or the nice guys got whack ding-a-ling when the real truth is it's the niceness, it's the responsibility, it is the goodness of good men that they don't like. That's what it is. It's real simple. Look at how a Muslim's supposed to act. Study our faith, see what a Muslim's supposed to act like, what a Muslim's supposed to behave like. The more a black man behaves like that, no tats, no baby mamas outside of wedlock, no gold teeth, because we're not allowed to wear gold, period. Not catching felonies because we don't behave in that kind of way. Being responsible, square dealing, truthful, staying out of mess. The more a black man acts like that, the less sisters like him, even if they like looking at him. Notice that. We got the same problem in the Muslim community. But you know what? Because the Black Manosphere is an awareness. The red pill awareness is an awareness. It's not a religion. It doesn't take faith. Islam takes awareness and faith. It's a mix of both. And most of the faith you have to have is backed up by evidence, some of which will be proven later and some of which has been proven. But the Black Manosphere is based on proof. The red pill awareness is based on proof. The broads are out there proving us true. Therefore, it doesn't take faith. So what you doing coming in late? We don't have to be nice and accepting of this. And I'm going to say this to the Black Manosphere, black men of the red pill aware. Maybe we shouldn't. Somebody don't know nothing about us and they admit it. Okay, fine. Later on, they find out, they come in. Okay, cool. But if they say something about us twice that's derogatory, we're done with them. If they say something about us once that's derogatory, they got a week to come back and say that actually wasn't true. Found out that wasn't the case. Maybe not a week. You can come up with a different deadline, but we need to have a deadline for which someone who talks trash about us once comes back and says, actually, I found out that wasn't true. Just that's enough. You can decide what the deadline is, but we need to have one. Twice they say something bad about us. No, you know what? We're done with you. And you can't come in later on. No, we hope that they play these games on you, get you in divorce court. We hope for this to happen because you telling other men to walk eyes wide open into this stuff, which is stanky self. You did this. You're an idiot. You're problematic. All we're doing is talking about an awareness of something that actually is a pattern, but we're the ones that have to bring this awareness out. And you sit up and just trying to diminutive, you just mad because you didn't get no buns in high school. It always comes down to this. We don't have time for this as a people anymore. You want to talk about the black community and black love and the black family? That's some rhetoric the black population has no time for. Can't afford it no more. No. That's the kind of rhetoric that we need to sit up and look at and say, no, you know what? You're detrimental to our people. You are bad for black men, because when black men have a legitimate grievance or a legitimate observation of something that's a problem, you're going to diminutize that and try to gaslight him into thinking that he just can't see past his own emotions when he's sitting looking right at this mother cuss word pattern in front of him. Anton, you did that. Well, you know, you didn't get buns in high school. And man, close your mouth. You came in late. And to this day, a lot of brothers in the Black Manosphere look at you with a side eye. And they're still waiting on you to say, I was wrong. Now, you may be talking our same points, but we're waiting on you to sit up and say, I used to trash these dudes and I was wrong, and you ain't said that yet. What you got to say about Ungawa? We got the problem with him, not you. And it's time for him to come along and say, y'all were right and I was wrong. And to drop this talk about let's start a movement. We already got it. Brother SYSBM, save yourself, black man, because we can't save the community. It's not allowed. It's never going to be. What else? Passport bros, not passport Joes. That's the white guys. And if they want to be nice to us and get along fine, that's up to them and it's up to the brothers. But they're passport Joes. We're passport bros. They're bouncing. And most of them are like, look, I'm going to go through the player phase. I don't want to hear about marriage, none of that. I'm catching bodies. And I'm the one got to tell some of them, hey, calm down. You're not going to compete with women and catching bodies. You're going to mess around and catch bugs. You're going to mess around and catch them bed bugs that you can't just shower them off. That's what you gonna catch. You ain't gonna do nothing but drive prices up for everything. And I'm telling you, when you start buying cat, you start paying for play, and you drive those prices up, when men decide to marry, the women gonna be like, well, my dowry is this high. And brothers be looking at them like, what? And then they're gonna say, well, look, if I can't get that dowry, I'm gonna go and sell cat. I'm not gonna get married for something you can afford. So that messes up both markets, the pay for play market, and then it messes up the marriage market. And I be telling them, look, you're going to dirty up the pool psychologically and with some other stuff. You're going to catch bugs and you're going to pass some on. And it ain't nothing for it's really nothing for somebody from particular government organizations to go and bring a briefcase in, find some lady, inject her, and then sit around and then blame it on you, because white supremacy is not going to stop. They will gladly sit up there and they'll do conspiracies like this just to blame you. Have countries sitting up here singling you out, and the country's governments will really think they're doing themselves a favor. They'll really think that what they're doing was necessary. They'll be like, no, we have to push black men out. African, American, Caribbean, period. We got to stop black men from coming over here because of what they bringing. Whole time it was something else. Something injected locally so that bros would catch it, because they trying to play catch up, body count catch up, because sisters in the West were sitting up talking about you ain't no real man because you ain't experienced. That's what this stuff does. If you're not aware of these games, you get manipulated at the very least into a false idea. Even if you have a moral compass governing your behavior, you're still manipulated into false ideas, thinking that they're true. That's how bad this is. So when you already have a Black Manosphere reacting and increasing red pill awareness, what do you mean we got to start a movement? Start a movement for what? It's already there. It's your turn to sit up and say, "Oh, y'all were right. I was wrong." And now Anissa slapped me in the face with it. And that's the thing about it. Every time somebody does start to realize Black Manosphere is right, the red pill awareness is right. Now, the reactions can be right or wrong, but when they realize the red pill awareness is right, every time it happens, it's because of something that a sister did to them or called some bros to do to him. It's always that. Black men couldn't just sit up and talk this trash and all of a sudden I start believing, hey, you know what? Black women are this, that, and the other. It's not worth it trying to get at them and trying to convince them to be with us. And yeah, it couldn't have been just them. No, I had to look at what did sisters prove them true? Yeah, you know what they did. These guys were provoked. They're not making this stuff up. These aren't just stories. They were provoked. And I know because I saw it happen in my case. These are the games they played on me or they tried to play on me. And sometimes bragged that they played on me even when I didn't let them, which means that there was a social incentive to play these games. They did this, and now these guys are talking about the same thing. I thought they didn't have to go through this. I thought it was just me. Turns out it's a bunch of bros got to go through this. And every year it's more. 2017, a lot of you brothers hadn't been treated as badly as I've been, as gaslit as I've been. 2017, when my memory got jarred. Fast forward to 2025 right now, and a lot of y'all done had these bros try to play all sorts of these games on you. And what's the difference? Well, some of it is that they've gotten more toxic. That's true. Some of it is that we've now gotten an awareness of some of the games that they were playing, and we didn't know about these things before. Some of you are looking back on these chicks that you called, and they ain't pick up. And then they call back later or they sent the message back later. My bad, I was at work. What's up? You good? And now you're looking like, man, that broad wasn't at work. Well, she was able to answer the phone. She just wasn't going to answer it. She just wasn't interested. She wanted to go out on a weekend so that she could eat for free. That's what that was about. Some of you are looking back and saying, okay, I see now what that was. I didn't know what this meant back then because they weren't confessing on social media. There wasn't any social media. Now we got social media. Now I see what it is. Oh, okay, all right. So they confessed, and that's what this broad was doing. It's a combination of these things. But when you start realizing it and you say something to somebody else, remember, there was a time Anton Daniels would have been like, are you just mad because you didn't get buns in high school and now you want to poison the minds of the young brothers? No. Yet. Not yet, but you know what? You keep talking like that, I will poison their minds. How about you step off? Now you got Ungawa Johnson because he's being blamed for the decision that maybe his baby mama made, probably did, and the decision that his daughter made, which more than likely had the backing of his baby mama. So he said to him, saying, okay, we're going to start something with these family courts. Yeah, I know. That means you're obeying the family courts in order for this to happen, Omar. I get it. But that's the whole problem. That's the issue. Imagine if you had access to this red pill awareness information before you ever got involved sexually for your first time, before you even approached a woman for your first date. Imagine if you had known this stuff before then. Well, these young brothers are going to grow up with this red pill aware information, but before they flirt the first time, before they ask a chick out on the first date, before they expose themselves, their nakedness, to a woman for the first time, hopefully in a marriage, but whether it is or not, they're going to have access to this, and therefore they're going to have a lot better information and guidance as to who to talk to about this first date. And a lot of them are going to say, I'm not doing it here in the States. Not even going to try that. I got to ask her, and she's going to be hyper scrutinous. Standards are one thing. But if she got standards, why doesn't she chase the men that meet the standards since they so rare? Why didn't she compete for them? Because she doesn't value men. She's entitled. Therefore, I don't want her. And that's what's going on now. A lot of these men are going to be able to think past all that stuff. And these women are feeling it, Omar and Anton. They're complaining about that not being approached. They go to bars, men ain't trying to buy them drinks. And then the men don't even stay out late. Like, I got to go to work tomorrow. Catch y'all tomorrow, man. The women are showing up late. Where the party at? Oh, shut up. It's a work night. I'm on my way out. It ain't but 6 o'clock. Yeah, but I got stuff to do before I go to bed. Close your mouth. At least buy me a drink before you go. I'm leaving. Why would I buy you a drink? What's in it for me? These men are wising up. There's going to come, there are places where men ain't even going to the bars in the first place. You got to spend money to get in. Spend money on drinks. If you ain't catching up with your boys, that there's a good meal that you can get at the bar or a game to watch or something, these guys are like, it's not worth it. And that's the smart thing to do. I'm saying this as a man that loves my daughters very much, but what's fair is fair. If they have to go and approach the man they want, well, at least they got me. I can go and look for a husband for them. That's the way that's supposed to work. But if they got to send me or ask me to go and talk on their behalf to someone, so be it. Because that means the men are wised up. That means the men are smart. Why should these men risk going to them and approaching them, asking them if they can get in touch with me just so that I can sit back and hyper scrutinize them later on? I would be fair, but how do they know that? You got these simp dads and their daughters are loose, and you're supposed to jump through dad's hoops to impress the daughter enough for him to sit up and say, you can marry him, that's fine. And then you marry her, and then she got a body count higher than yours. And can't respect you and won't listen to you, but you still got to provide, protect, and problem solve. And when you try to problem prevent, she don't listen to you because now you're preventing. What are you talking about? Well, I'm talking about if we do this way, we don't have to worry about that later. Well, we'll deal with that when it comes. No, you mean I'll deal with it when that comes. So what I'm saying is let's prevent. Why? You can't fix that? You can't handle that? Oh, my God. And Anton, we've been seeing this all along, and you've pretty much been like, there was that time when you were just like, well, look, I got more money than you, and I'm married, so I know what I'm talking about, and you don't, and you need to close your mouth, and y'all just mad. And now you got Omar. I see now why it is that Edwin Allen Anderson said what he said about daughter dads. I understand that now. I understood it before. I understood the validity of it before. Now I would have sat up and said, well, you can't morally judge the dads because they don't determine if the child's going to be a son or a daughter. But I did understand that it could, in fact, shape their perspective. And I think it does that sometimes with black dads, even if they have sons and daughters. Even if they got both, a lot of them are just programmed to look at the son like, well, you ain't going to have no value to women. And that's right. You should have to go out there and prove this, that, and the other, then go and approach her, then impress her dad and jump through one hoop after another and initiate everything in every stage, even when she's the only one that gains any benefit from it and you don't, like marriage. And then deal with her when she won't initiate anything you do like, but then she'll initiate shopping sprees so she can spend your money. Then she'll initiate divorce, and that's just what you're worth. And they'll sit up and tell their sons that, because they got sons and daughters, and then turn around and tell the daughter, yeah, you're worth all that much even if you don't do nothing but sit on your butt and eat potato chips and watch TV. Baby girl, you ain't got to do nothing. You ain't got to clean one bathtub. If that man can't afford X, Y, and Z, all of that, and maids and drivers for you, he don't need you. Talking like Yada, but he's her dad. And to make matters worse, when a man does show up, he's too old. If he can afford all that, he's too old. So then she cheats on him because he's always at work and he can't throw it to the back like a young guy. And simp daddy gonna sit and be like, well, baby girl, if he even knows that she cheated. Well, baby girl, man's not supposed to get married if he's sexually unfit. Hold up. He was old. That's what it took for him to afford the stuff you said he needs to be able to afford. If he had been a young dude who could have slammed it to the back, but he didn't have all the stuff, you'd have been like, you don't make enough. What you doing at my doorstep? Stop talking to my daughter. Leave us. Because you a simp nigga. That's how we've been trained. Kendra G had her dad in her life. She don't think men are worth anything. And he explained why she thinks that way. We got really deeper problems. We have problems so deep that Anton and Ungawa, we can't afford to extend the grace to y'all that we've oftentimes extended. You're both Johnnies come lately, both of you. Neither one of you really did exactly what you're supposed to do. You both analyzed religions, which require faith in something you cannot see. You made decisions based on what evidence you could see, but when it came down to this, which does not require faith at all, you had to trash talk us first. Both of you need to say the same thing. Y'all were right and I was wrong. End of. For those of you listening, I hope this helped. Thanks a million. As always, Black Heart, Black Mind, Blackout, Assalamu Alaikum. Not you, Omar. Black heterosexual non-select male power because they don't like it. Black patriarchy till extinction of Judgment Day. And thank you for flying with us again here on Jet Black Airways, where the phrase jet black is also a verb. On your way out of the cabin and to the terminal, should you have anything extra, please punch that CashApp button and only punch in amounts that are easy for you, like 1 or 2. Keep Jen Black with us till the wings and the wheels fall off. Gender justice forever.